in honor of the journey, which began a little over 2 weeks ago. The past 2025 is beginning to disappear over the horizon behind us as the journey into 26 is asking us important questions. As with any transition between 1 year and the next transpires, Capricorn is often at the helm. And Capricorn has to do with executive decisions, those functional directives as to a meaningful path forward. You might ask, meaningful to whom? That has to do with where the focus of the executive lies. Without getting too deep into the political machinations of what is transpiring on the planet currently, each of us individually has to tune into our own perspective of the executive to make a determination as to, are we going to be followers, or are we going to strike out on our own? And, even as I say our own, I don't think that really justifies the capability of what executive really can and possibly should mean as a vehicle for being able to integrate a perspective that is inclusive, far more inclusive than is currently obvious, of everyone, of everything. So you have to ask yourself, is my version of executive leadership a meaningful context of inclusion capable of sustaining more and more participants in a path forward that will be of benefit to all? That's as far as I'm going to go on the political side of this equation, at least at this point. One of the reasons that I bring up the journey process is because of Jupiter, ruler of Sagittarius. Always the inclination when Jupiter's involved in anything is what lies ahead. That is Jupiter's directive. And we've just as we went through this week, Jupiter opposed Venus, the Sun, and Mars up here near the end, or nearing the end of Capricorn. So, from the Venusian perspective, it is an opposition. One has to ask ourselves, is the larger perspective on how the integration aspect of each of us with one another is able to perceive a next step. Not necessarily the curtailment of what it is that we came together to enfold. But it is Jupiter we're talking about that's opposing. Is my vision large enough to be inclusive of anyone on my wavelength, that whether I agree with them or not, I am not instantaneously attempting to demean their perspective, but provide it a vehicle whereby the willingness for change is always a part of the equation. Mine as well as others. Now the sun opposite, Jupiter opposite the sun, vitality, the reign of the king, or people in positions of authority. That is what the sun represents, after all, in opposition to the journey process at Jupiter across the axis there. Is there enough latitude in the expanse of visionary potential that leadership represents to recognize that there's a next step? There's always a next step. Where that next step is going to lead is going to have to do with the perspective of what it is that those in executive positions have determined is of value. You have to ask yourself, value to who? That is an essay question. To add a not minor tweak into this equation of Jupiter oppositions, the recent opposition of Mars to Jupiter, in one sense, we've seen some of the outworkings of aggressiveness that have, landed on the global stage of, aggressiveness expanded. That's that Jupiter-Mars opposition. Depending on your perspective of the value of others in the global matrix, the human matrix, which, even as I say that, the human matrix it's kind of a limiting perspective. It really doesn't take into account our connection to this planet that is the sustenance for all of us. Things are afoot on the global scale that are asking us some very important questions. So this journey that 2026 represents, right off the bat, do you sense the potential requirement for more participation by each of us to make sure that we don't run too far off the rails of societal embracing, that we lose track of the value that we each have when we engage with one another to discover a soul level of awareness and what it is that we came to facilitate in the continued development forward of soul awareness. When I looked at this week, first off, let's take a look. We start out the week, and we still have Mercury out of bounds. Our thought process is about a way to handle this. I lost the button here. Hang on. We'll come back to this. Let's get this window closed. Go back to our share. My back button doesn't seem to be there anymore. How peculiar. Hang on. We're going to do some... Okay. I have discovered, I just recently updated this AstroGold program, and before that I could switch back and forth between the chart and the actual sheet that shows me the declinations, speeds of the planet, all that, and still be able to switch back and forth automatically between them. I don't seem to be able to do that at the moment. At least I haven't discovered how to. So we're not going to go look at that sheet. Just trust me. I do know what planets are going out of bounds and the speeds they're moving and everything. Now, where was I? Oh yeah, Capricorn season. The thing that I was about to mention was that Mercury is still out of bounds until the 15th, which is Thursday of this week, which means that may as well move the chart ahead a little bit. On this day, Tuesday, and Mars Day, Mercury here is still out of bounds, 18 degrees of Capricorn. It has moved into this opposition with Jupiter in a more strengthened fashion, and this perspective of Jupiter and Mercury, the two rulers of opposite signs in opposition, has the potential to lead to, what shall we say, loose lips sink ships is a good way to put this, because that opposition of these two planets, Jupiter egging along what it is that wants to be said, and Mercury, being egged along by a version of awareness that really doesn't have to deal with limitations, doesn't care to deal with limitations. This could be an expression factor of things surfacing in rather unexpected fashion at the verbal mental level that maybe we weren't ready to expose just yet. And going on from there, of course, on our mercurial day, still have this Mercury opposed to Jupiter. This is Wednesday, by the way, the 14th. And it's one day before us, Mercury out of bounds too. It's, it's to be expected that the dance between what it is that we really want to say and what it is that our mind may take over as control and allow to leap off our tongues doesn't have a predictability factor that you can count on. And Jupiter in opposition is saying, yeah, go for it. Can you feel that kind of energy at work? Yeah, that's exciting. And anyway, the week proceeds. We're still trying to get a feel for where is this 2026 journey going to lead us here in the early days, with that vision of the 2025 coast disappearing behind us. You can kind of see this conglomeration of Capricornian energy, Venus, Sun, Mars, Mercury, all in that last decade of Capricorn, may be asking us, am I preparing effectively enough for what's going to happen shortly with the advent of the next step or sign in this process, Aquarius? A very different energy than Capricorn. Oh yeah. And 2 days ago, since I can't go over to my sheets now and get back to this page effectively where I can actually shift it day to day, 2 days ago the moon went out of bounds. It's up here doing its thing through Sagittarius and Capricorn, which is when it goes out of bounds right now in the particular cycle we're in every other week. When it's here 2 weeks later, it's down here also out of bounds. Anyway, out of bounds, the feelings, and by the way, this is in Sagittarius, the sign ruled by, you guessed it, Jupiter. Perhaps are a little closer to the surface. These feelings that we have about, what Jupiter's energy might be inspiring us to take chances with. Friday comes, and the moon, still out of bounds, moves into Capricorn to conjoin with that Capricornian cadre of planets. All this stuff up there in the Capricorn realm, trying to, facilitate as effectively as possible some sort of a meaningful context as to what is it that we should be doing if we're going to continue to engage with one another in the meaningful context of organized, disciplined societal dictates. The weekend. Yeah, this is the weekend beginning out. As weekend. And on Saturday, oh, look, we have a shift. Venus has just shifted into Aquarius. And the other, Venus, or the engagement with the other, while in Capricorn, may have been trying to facilitate some level of organized engagement in the discovery of what it is that we need to do together. Well, Aquarius is a sign that has to do with group energy, your cosmic tribe kind of experience. So it's still, has that flavor of what is it that we need to do together. It's just not necessarily as intimately interactive as, as a Libra Venus might be. There is the inherent value in any group context of being able to engage with one another. But it doesn't necessarily lean toward that more interpersonal, intimate kind of engagement with one another. I'm not sure that I can easily describe this in a way that you're going to grasp. Venus going into Aquarius says, in one sense, the need or requirement or energy pull to be in group context with one another. It's there. Yeah, and it's going to be enhanced one way or another as we proceed into this Aquarian experience. And on this very same day, Mercury is going to come into conjunction with Mars. You can kind of see they're only a half a degree apart. And, this is the next day. Yes, Venus and Mercury, both together at 26 degrees of Capricorn. And on this very same day, you'll see we have a new moon right here. This moon is going to catch up with the sun at 28 degrees of Capricorn. And so we're being queried, if you will, to set an intention for what the next lunar cycle is going to be about. Now, this is at 28 degrees of Capricorn, so quite near that transitional point where Capricorn becomes Aquarius. The sun moves from Capricorn to Aquarius. So, wrapping up what it is that the Capricorn dances have been about for that previous month, and being ready to shift gears from the idea of rulership over or with others into the arena of really making sure that the engagement that we have, Aquarius, with one another is going to be along similar trajectories that is the reason that has drawn us together. The Sabian symbol for this particular new moon from Dane Ridger's An Astrological Mandala reads, a woman reading tea leaves. The keynote, the ability to see the hidden meaning in every occurrence drawing one's attention. I sometimes feel, sense, if you will, that an aspect or a potential aspect in the use of the astrological tool over a long time has, in some sense established a kinship with this tea leaf reader. The leaves of tea from an astrological standpoint are the planets doing their, variable dances with each other as they circle around the chart. And as I glance at it, I go, what do the tea leaves have to say today? And so each week, what my celestial chatter is I'm looking at those tea leaves. And I'm saying, what is it that this day might be trying to grab our attention, if we're paying attention or not, that could be relevant to my taking steps going forward that are going to maintain a meaningful context for what? For my survival, for my soul level expansion of awareness. Yeah, well, just minor reasons why you might want to take a step in a particular direction. Anyway, further reading on this particular Sabian symbol for the new moons starting the next cycle. Man has always sought to interpret the meaning of events or situations which baffle him in terms of specific omens or signatures. The reading of tea leaves is only a commonplace modern version of a certain type of procedure used by priests of all ancient religions. The practice is based on a realization of the relation of everything to everything else. A definition of astrology given by Mark Edmund Jones. Dream interpretation, in-depth psychology belongs to the same category, as it is based upon the establishment of a close connection between the unconscious, at least at first, is mainly referred to, while in omens or modern fortune telling at its best, one relies upon the power of occult forces or entities to convey the information that will clarify confusing situations. So you have to ask yourself, that's more along the lines of a divinatory process that should just kind of sit there, perhaps in the background, maybe in the foreground for some of us, as we determine what might this potential vision have to inspire us as we set forth on the next phase of this journey. Yeah, a little long journey. Remember, 25 to 26, the journey of 26 unfolding. Well, during that, there are 13 new moons, and each new moon sets in motion a version of, like a chapter of this journey that we're on. And this particular chapter that I'm talking about here today is at the very end of Capricorn. A new energy signature is being born, and paying attention to the tea leaves. What is it that might be an inspiration from whatever source you happen to utilize as far as potential guidance in the experience of where do I want to go? What do I want to set as my intention as the solar energy shifts out of Capricorn into the group energy of Aquarius? What does my cosmic tribe want to do together? Yeah, I think together is part of the key to what it is that we need to really encompass as we take this next new chapter in the annual voyage of what is trying to get our attention. Well, the moon, still out of bounds at this particular new moon. Just went over both Mars, Mercury, as it danced into its experience of this new moon. Can you sense, first Mars, that impulsive drive to do something, and Mercury, no longer out of bounds because it came back in, excuse me, on this particular new moon day, Mercury is still out of bounds. So, do my thoughts rattle around inside this, spacious head of mine and collide with things that I hadn't anticipated, to inspire words to, roll off my tongue that, that what? Well, Mercury's been retrograde since the end of last year. On today, we're talking the 18th now, Sunday of this next week, Mercury will finally come back in bounds. But not before, look at this, we have Mars at 26 degrees, Mercury at 26 degrees, Moon at 26 degrees, Sun at 28 degrees, and of course our ascendant, which basically rotates every day all the way around the chart. Can you feel the potential for changes in the air? There's something new attempting to be born right now. Are you ready? That's all the astrology I'm going to throw at you to, mull around and contemplate as we dance into this next chapter of 2026. I don't know what else to tell you. There is always magic afoot. But you have to pay attention and be looking for it. Otherwise, it can slip by so innocently and fast that you hardly notice it. The irony is, if you begin to notice it, and I don't mean just notice it, but really tune into it. Listen to the muses trying to, inspire within you some level of tonality, of a larger picture of the reality of being alive as an inspiration. To take chances. Not be the same old you that you were yesterday. There is always a new you. Are you aware of it? That's all I got for this week. Take care, and take care of each other. I think that's one of the keys that the end of this week and the new moon with Venus shifting into Aquarius really emphasizes the vitality of being able to, no matter who we are, recognize that we're all human. We all have similar goals. We may not all recognize that, But if we live with that perspective, I think we'll be able to get along with one another a whole heck of a lot better. Ciao.